Hello and welcome back to my Nissan NV200 campervan build. This video is the first of a two-part sub-series on building a side console with storage and a fold-down table for the van. Whilst I could build a big one which spans from the ceiling to the floor, as many van conversions have, I would lose some of the width of my bed, and having worked so hard building it to the entire width of the van, that's the last thing I want to do. Instead, in this video I'll be building a wheel arch storage box which the bed can pull over and rest on, and in a later video I'll be building an upper section which sits above the box, leaving a gap for my bed in the middle. Hopefully it will all become clear as I go, so without further ado, this is how I did it. I started by making a rough design of how I wanted the chest to look on SketchUp. It was my first time using the software, but I found it fairly easy to use. My reasons for creating a wheel arch box are that it creates more vital storage in a largely unused area of the van. It creates another point of support for the bed when it is fully extended. It covers up some of my questionable carpeting over the wheel arch, and it doubles up as a footrest when we're sat in the van. Creating an upward lifting lid on the box would mean that it is accessible even if the floor of the van is full, and putting a wooden base in the bottom of the box increases its rigidity, as there won't be a back to the box. My first stage was to work out the depth of the side pieces. I wanted to fit my water bottle and temporarily my portable power pack in there, whilst continuing to allow room for my surfboard to fit down the centre of the van. I spent a lot of time measuring out the box's area and then masking taped its shape onto the floor of the van so that I had a visual reference. I would be building the box out of lengths of pine board which I could source cheaply and came in a number of useful sizes, meaning less cutting for me. I first measured out the side pieces and then realised I would need to scribe out the back edge near the side door. I created a cardboard template for this and cut it out with a jigsaw at a later date. I could then measure out the lid, the front and the base from the other pieces of wood and roughly cut them into sections so that they were easier to transport. In the workshop, I began work on the box by cutting the side and front pieces to size, using a mixture of the table and circular saw. I needed to get all three pieces to the same height so the lid would sit flat, which was trickier than it sounds as the floor was at different levels in different places. With the pieces cut, I used pocket holes to attach the cut pieces together. It was the first time I had used a pocket hole jig, but as everyone else says, it really is a quick and easy way to build furniture. I then used some corner clamps to get my alignment right when screwing the boards together and managed to get the box nice and square. After this was assembled, I began work on the lid. I cut it to size on the table saw and then cut the lid in two as per my original SketchUp design. This design allows me to fit a hinge, as I don't have a back to the box, which is where you'd normally fit the hinge to. Once both lid pieces were cut to width, I cut out some material from the underside of the narrower piece using a planer and sander so that it would sit nicely over the wheel arch. I could then cut out a couple of areas which needed to be removed so that the lid would sit flush with the wall of the van. Unfortunately, I cut out a small area which wasn't necessary in the end, but it isn't too noticeable. I attached the narrow lid piece with pocket holes and then could check the fit, which was nice and tight in the van. You'll notice that the box is a little smaller than the masking tape outline on the floor, as I hadn't taken into account the leg of the bed, so had to do a last minute fix. The final piece to cut was the base, and as mentioned before, this was more about adding strength and rigidity to the box. I measured and scribed where the wheel arch needed to fit and cut the wood to size on the table saw and jigsaw, then attached it from the underside using pocket holes. I then placed it in the van and was really pleased with the fit. I did some preliminary sanding to the box before I attached the hinge and the front section of the lid, as there would be some areas that would become difficult to sand once these were attached. For my hinge, I used a 900mm piano hinge, which looks really smart on the box. I then took some time to disassemble parts of the box and glue the joints together, which should hopefully aid the strength of the pocket holes over time. I did a final sand on the box and then could think about varnishing it. I used a matte finish polyurethane varnish and thinned the first coat with white spirit as per the instructions on the tin. I worked my way around the box and let it dry overnight. I then lightly sanded the box before applying the second coat because the wood grain had become raised in some areas. The second coat took really well, and having sanded it again, I applied a third and final coat and it gave a lovely finish. I could now install the box in the van, and as I had done with the bed, I used turnbuckles for a non-destructive, easily removable installation. I drilled in screw eyes to both sides of the box and was able to utilise load rings built into the van to tension the box in place. The left side was simple, as I had access to the load ring from within the box. However, for the right side, the load ring sat outside of the box, so I pulled up part of the floor, which is also easily removable, and threaded some cord with looped ends through under the floor into the box. This method has worked perfectly, and the box is very securely attached and hasn't required any drilling into the van walls or the wheel arch. To finish the box off, I installed two very strong magnets attached to each end of the lid, and these stop the lid from rattling whilst driving. Finally, I installed a soft close attachment to the lid so that it won't slam and bang. Building this box was a really fun project, and I'm very happy with the result. It's going to be so handy having this extra storage for trips away, as well as the additional support for the bed. Thanks so much for watching, and please do subscribe to my channel to keep up to date with the rest of my van build series.